Welcome to St. Vitus Bar's Age of Quarantine. I'm Caroline. I'm your host for tonight. I am an artist, illustrator, and I do social media stuff for Vitus. I know I always say that I'm super stoked because I guess I'm stoked a lot, but we have Chris Spencer joining tonight from Unsane, from Human Impact. He's also been in Cutthroats 9, in this band UXO with Steve Austin from Today is the Day. And I think Ceylon, which I know that I'm not pronouncing correctly, but yeah, so we've got Chris on. He'll be joining shortly. If this is your first live stream, there's a comments button at the bottom, and there is, so you can ask your questions there. There's also a questions button, so if you want to answer or ask some questions and use the questions button instead of the comments button box, that also will work. And let me just see if I can get Chris. Make sure my volume's all the way up. Hello. I think you were sideways right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How's that? How's that?
A little freezy, but perfect. Cool. Yeah, the vertical orientation thing is always a pain in the ass. But yeah,
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but basically we'll just kind of chat for about an hour-ish. People will be able to join or ask questions and post comments down at the bottom. So it's a little interactive, which is always fun and weird. But yeah, so I guess you guys have a lot of stuff kind of on your plate right now in Human Impact and in Unsane World. So I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about, some of the reissues that you guys have coming up.
Well, a friend of mine, Todd, had said he had offered to get our entire back catalog together and put it out through virtual label. So we got everything we could. We had actually signed a contract with Matador when they got bought out by Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one contract for Total Destruction that we couldn't get. And then the Southern Lord, Sterilized, is not up. We can't get it yet, but we'll get it soon. But so yeah, we got everything. And then there was the unreleased first record that actually was really short. It was only like 7 songs. So it's kind of an EP. But then we threw on some stuff from a demo that I used to go around to clubs in New York and kind of shop around, see if we could get a show. So yeah, we put all that together. So, oops.
Sorry, you broke up there for a second. You said you were working on putting some stuff out chronologically.
Yeah, we're starting with that first unreleased record in the demo. Probably, you might have heard of that. And then the first record, singles record, we're skipping Total Destruction because Atlantic owns it. But then on down the line, everyone sort of one at a time as we can. So.
Well, and it's been really cool sort of just like as a fan of Unsane to get to hear a lot of this stuff that just wasn't available digitally when I started listening to you guys.
Oh, yeah? Oh, you couldn't get the early stuff, huh?
No, I think I first heard Scattered, Smothered, and Uncovered in like a YouTube rip because there was just literally nowhere I could buy it.
Oh, wow. Huh, that's weird. I mean, that's Rep. So Tom Hazelmeyer I thought he re-released it and stuff.
He did, yeah.
But he didn't, did he do it digitally? No?
This was like, I don't know, like 10 years ago at this point. Like
okay.
The only place I could find it digitally was YouTube.
Yeah. Easy.
Yeah, but then also with like that first record, or not the first record, but the self-titled that you guys re-released, that was another one where it was interesting for me to hear that because it still sounds like you guys. I know, it's your previous drummer, so like you can tell that the sound is different the way that he plays, but like it still really sounds like Unsane.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I mean, things haven't changed that much. You know, there's some, it kind of progressed, obviously. New bass player and drummer over, you know, new drummer and then bass player over time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of write shit in the, you know, kind of similar way a lot. You know, I kind of like a certain sound, so.
Yeah, and actually, one thing that I thought was really interesting in doing some of the backgrounding research for this is just I heard you talk about sort of the writing process and how the writing process worked for you for Unsane and how it's a little bit different with Human Impact. And I was wondering if you could just kind of expand on that a little bit.
I mean, Human Impact, it's really me and Jim writing shit, you know, just kind of sending shit back and forth, working on shit together, and then we kind of bring it into the band. Whereas, I mean, Unsane, me and Dave did that a lot, but in a different way, obviously, because Jim has such a wide range of sounds to work with. So things are a little different. You know, with me and Dave, it was kind of like, okay, you like this riff, let's work from there, get that going, you know, build on that. And this is more like, Human Impact is more like there's like 3 or 4 different ideas kind of coming together at once and how to sort of marry all those ideas into a kind of cohesive, you know, situation. So Unsane, I mean, a lot of it, you know, was kind of me and Dave. We'd work together in the studio, and then we'd grab Vinny and have him.
I lost you for a second there.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I was going to say maybe if I get off the
You're
Wi-Fi.
good. Maybe. Connectivity issues are always, it depends on how close you are to the router. Yeah, I think we're having some slight Wi-Fi connectivity issues. Bear with us. Exciting technologies. But yeah, if you're still with, yeah, so someone thinks that getting off the Wi-Fi might work. We'll see. We'll see if this works. We can see if we can get Chris to rejoin momentarily. But yeah, and then for folks still hanging out, thank you for your patience. And as we get Chris back, we can see if we can address some questions. So, but yeah, and if you have not already checked out the current Human Impact EP, which was recently released by Ipecac, I would definitely recommend that. And there is the, as Chris was mentioning, there is also Improvised Munitions is on the way. I think one song is streaming so far. And trying to get this back. Thank you for your patience. But yeah, Improvised Munitions is streaming so far. Awesome. Cool. This is better. You able to hear me?
I don't know. The Wi-Fi's like, my Wi-Fi's pretty powerful.
It might just be how close you are to a router or something like that. Yeah, I'm still getting some freezing. All right, now you're better. I think, I hope. Fingers crossed. Are you able to hear me? All right. Now I've lost your sound for some reason. I feel like I recognize the art behind you though. Like I think I recognize that astronaut. I can't hear you though. I'm sorry. Here, it might help if you exit and then join again. I know this is absolutely painful, but whoever keeps pressing the heart button, thank you. You're keeping my morale up. All right, wait, I heard sound. Can you hear me now? Ah, shit. Anybody able to hear Chris? Yeah, technical difficulties. I can't currently hear you. The only thing I can suggest is if somebody has one of those like the headphones with the microphone attached, maybe. I know, right? I kind of was the AV club. Kind of. Sound.
Do you have a headset? No, I think it's working.
I can hear you now.
You got it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Much better. Awesome.
Right.
Thank you for bearing with that.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I moved rooms here.
No worries. Yeah, that it's just the live stream can get a little fussy with like Wi-Fi and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
having some issues. Anyway, I think I got it.
Cool.
Cool.
But yeah, so I know Improvised Munitions is coming out. I think is it the 9th maybe?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Sorry.
I think it's the 9th. Because I think when we were initially talking about doing this, it was either this week or next, and I think next because of the 9th. But yeah, so I know the story for like how you guys managed to track down that release, I think is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, pretty crazy. I don't know. I've told the story a bunch. Yeah, so we signed with Circuit Records. It was this guy, Ernie Ciccarino, or I forgot his name. But we signed with him, and he was doing like Cop Shoot Cop, I think, and Surgery, crap like that. And then he went through the whole thing, made the test pressing, gave me a test pressing one night at the Pyramid Club and said, oh yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to get it out and everything. And then just disappeared. Yeah. So just completely vanished off the face of the planet. So I heard later that he owed some drug dealers a bunch of money and had spent all his money on cocaine. And so, you know, we just never heard from him. Never came out, nothing. And I had a test pressing, but then I was kind of living in the van for a long time there, a few years. And I had the test pressing at my house. My junkie roommates went through all my shit and sold any vinyl I had in my room. So then when I got home, everything is gone. That's gone. Cut to 30 years later. And I sort of heard that somebody had a copy of this. And I was like, holy shit, how did that happen? So this guy Jordan had it. And it took a while. I had to track him down through one guy in Sweden and then another guy. And I finally found him. Turns out he's from the Lower East Side and bought what I can only assume is my test pressing at a used record store in like, I don't know, 91, something like that.
That's crazy.
But so he had it. And then we got in touch with him, got it transferred as best we could. Remastered it, all that stuff. And then now we're putting that out. And then I had also found 3/4-inch tape from Wharton Tier's studio that we had done just to get shows early on, in like 88, I think. I would just kind of go around with cassettes and drop them off. So, so it was kind of like, okay, this is the earliest shit. We're going to put it all out. The original Improvised Munitions record, some, I'm not even sure how we got them, but we had some tracks that we put out on singles and then re-recorded the ones that we put on the first record.
That's amazing. With the cover art for the Improvised Munitions release, did you guys like initially have something like that in mind, or did you sort of like do it to match the blood and blood?
No, I had this original concept that Jens Jurgensen, who used to shoot a lot of our stuff, he's in like Boss Hog and stuff like that. But he used to shoot a lot of the Unsane stuff with Pete, and we had this whole concept idea way back then of one single drop of blood dripping down a piece of drywall. So Pete and Jens had tried to do it, and then somehow another kind of lucky chance, Pete found the original slides for it.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wait, so that's the original like thing that you guys had in mind?
Yeah. The original thing shot by Jens and everything, and so yeah, all original
That's
shit.
crazy. Lots of like finding stuff that's been unearthed after decades.
Yeah, which is kind of unbelievable because I thought it was gone forever, just never, I'd never even hear it. I didn't even remember what it sounded like. So,
That's amazing. And then, well, one other thing that you sort of touched on in there was just that at that point, the guy who recorded it had also done Cop Shoot Cop. And so I was wondering if you could talk just a little bit about like the just how you and Jim kind of got to know each other.
Me and Jim actually knew each other before he was in Cop Shoot Cop. In the really early days of Unsane, me and Jim used to cruise around Manhattan copying drugs and riding bikes all over the place. So I knew Jim as just a friend before he, for any of this stuff. So then when he joined Cop, we were pretty psyched because we had a practice space with us, Cop Shoot Cop, and Pussy Galore. So we were all in the same space, and like Nats, the bass player, would live down there sometimes and crash on the floor. And this place on Avenue B that was in a basement that flooded every once in a while. But yeah, so we shared practice space, with those guys, and I knew Jim from way before. So
yeah, well, and also some other interview that I listened to, you mentioned that you had at one point actually tried to get Jim to join Unsane. That was
after Cop Shoot Cop broke up. I asked the guys that by then it was Dave and Vinny. And I asked them, hey, would you be into Jim coming in and doing noise stuff with us? But I understood that they wanted to remain a three-piece because we were doing a ton of touring and we really had everything locked in as far as the three-piece goes. We were set. So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
Yeah, for sure. And then it's sort of also funny to me just because like kind of some of the full circle stuff. I guess you guys with some of the early Human Impact stuff, you recorded with Martin BC, right?
Yeah. Originally it was Wharton Tears, and then for Total Destruction we went over to BC Studios. Yeah. So what?
And then I think the early Human Impact stuff too. Did you do with?
Yeah, the very initially, we did. But then we went over to Hoboken Recorders in Hoboken, working with this guy Alan Camlet. That I don't know. He just got a really good sound, so it kind of was like let's stick with this, So.
Yeah. And then I guess with Human Impact, you guys have an EP that did just come out. And then of course the full length that I think it came out on, I want to say Friday the 13th, right before everything kind of
lockdown. Yeah. And our record release show is like the first pandemic show and the last show in Manhattan, or in New York, Brooklyn. Yeah. He was with you guys.
Yeah. I did not go to that show because I was like, I
can't. Westbrook used to play with us. There were a couple bands, and nobody even wanted to play. We were Phil's girlfriend is an epidemiologist, and she was like, "What are you doing?" You could tell there was kind of like you kind of this sort of hesitancy to do it, which I totally understand. I completely understand. But we kind of figured, without it's going to be live streamed. And it doesn't matter if there's that many people. We just want to play live. So
yeah. Well, and it's also sort of funny because just like thematically, as like a last show, a band named Human Impact is sort of like a nicely darkly ironic thing. But as far as like your lyrical content goes as well, too, there I mean, I know you've probably talked till you're blue in the face about Contact and the process of deciding to release that. But
Yeah.
also just like the general lyrical themes are pretty like, you know, it, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Contact was written before this hit. So that was really kind of a weird thing. You know, it's like we'd written the song before the pandemic had really hit, and recorded it. And then it was like, you know, you don't want to seem like you're being too opportunistic, you know, like, oh, there's pandemic. Let's really a song about a pandemic, you know, no. So it was kind of like, you know, it's done. It's already, we've wrote it before. Let's just get it out now and just, you know, it's just rip the Band-Aid off there. You know, just kind of do it as quickly as possible, because to me, it would seem actually even worse to wait till after, you know what I mean? Like, so, you know.
Yeah, well, and the video that you guys created to go along with it, I remember watching it at the time, and like it didn't seem as weird to me as it does now. Like watching it now feels like a really uncomfortable time capsule in like an awesome way.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, that was Jim's idea, because there was, you know, we wanted to achieve a certain amount of inclusion and not just have it be, you know, just like another kind of stock footage video or something. And it seemed like a really good idea, because everybody had really been in lockdown for, you know, a few weeks. Yeah. It was really beginning. So it kind of hit hard, and people wanted something to do, and it was a really good idea. At first I was like, I don't know who's going to send in shit, you know, but it actually really worked out.
Yeah, some of the footage in it too, of like going through empty tunnels, like driving through empty tunnels, is really fucking surreal.
Yeah, Jim.
Was that Jim just like driving around with a...
Yeah, I don't know where he got that. He does that to me all the time. I'm like, where the hell did you get that? You know? Who knows? Yeah, he probably was just driving around with his phone in the car, you know.
That's amazing. Well, and then you also, like, the EP that you guys just put out is sort of, it's a compilation of some stuff that you've released, like, sort of in batches over the last year. So I was wondering if you could kind of talk about some of the writing and releasing process for that, since of course it probably was a little on the harder side.
That whole Contact and all those 5 songs, and in Subversion as well. Those were all done during a session right before the pandemic hit, you know, like a few weeks before. And I mean, we were lucky to get that done, because then we have something to release during this whole period of time. So we had like 5, and then we also had stuff that was even from earlier. There's a few songs on the new EP that were from earlier stuff that we didn't put on the first record, because we kind of have a lot of stuff. I mean, so yeah, so it was kind of like super early stuff, and just that batch of, I guess, 5 from that earlier session. Yeah, we just wanted to get them out and keep moving, you know. And Jim's really amazing at putting out these videos. So
nice. I guess when you were talking about sort of like the collaborative songwriting process with Jim as well, just thinking about, like, because you guys aren't really in the same place, so you guys are sort of sending each other recordings back and forth.
Yeah, initially, and then I go, and I just crash at Jim's place, and we hang out, and we kind of fine tune things a lot, and then we go into the studio with the guys. You know what I mean? And then it really, like, things really change. You know, I mean, a lot of these songs, we just started out with like 26 ideas, and then that got narrowed down to 16 when, you know, me and Jim got together, and then that got narrowed down to 13, I think, once we started doing them with the guys, which now will probably get narrowed down to like 8, you know. So you kind of just cut the fat, you know, and just try and stick with the stronger stuff, and, you know, so.
Yeah, well, and I would also assume that writing for Human Impact is a little bit different, not just because it's a different band, but also, like, with Unsane, you were writing for sort of like a 3-piece.
Oh, totally. Yeah, where the guitar is going a lot. You know, here I try and kind of pull it back a little bit, not play quite so much, so there's more room. Like, Jim adds a few layers of stuff, so it's pretty cool.
I actually do sort of have a follow-up question that's related to a different project, but with UXO, I know that in my mind, I just feel like I have no idea how you and Steve would have sort of approached that, given that both of you are fundamentally sort of guitarists. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like the writing process for the UXO record.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I was going out to Maine. A friend of mine was seeing some family friends and shit, and I knew Steve was there and kind of always really wanted to work with him. So, and he's got a studio in his house. So I went out there. I had just kind of a few ideas, you know, in my pocket, and just kind of showed up. And me and him, I just kind of moved in with him for a week, and we just wrote a bunch of shit, and then got together with the guys, and they actually, Patrick Kennedy did an amazing job. He actually played drums to pre-recorded stuff on some parts. I know, very hard to do. Yeah, so it was really like kind of me and Steve just hanging out, and then getting other people to kind of come in and do their parts.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then I know you guys did a little bit of touring on that, but you kind of had to stop, right? Because Steve got sick.
Bad sciatic thing going on, and then it turns out he at the same time had fucking Lyme's disease. So, you know, he was just burnt and hurt and all kinds of shit. So
it's also it's not that it's funny, funny, but it's sort of interesting to me because I think over your particular career you have a number of these like points where the work that you guys have done has ended up like badly affected by injury.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Some description.
Yeah. Yes. For some reason that happens. Yeah, a lot. Vinny breaking his collarbone and it canceled the end of a tour.
I
had all my internal.
Yeah. I was reading some shit about that earlier, and you were like, oh yeah, we just like duct taped his shoulder back together.
Yeah, we did. We kind of wrapped duct tape around the leg and then supported the right one. He just had real trouble hitting the cymbal, you know. So, but he I mean, he was a trooper, man. He did. It happened on a Thursday, and then we had San Francisco and LA Friday and Saturday, and we did those. And then I think we were like driving to Vegas or something like that, and Vinny was like, "I just can't. It's too painful. I can't lay down in the van, you know, and deal with this shoulder thing and bounce around in the van." So, yeah, we just had to call it. He flew home. It was, I think we had like two more weeks left. So.
Yeah, and then you were starting to mention when you got like really badly like jumped and were dealing with the internal injuries, and then you went on tour right after that.
Yeah, we had a lot of touring coming up. We had like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 months of touring. It was like States, Europe, Japan, Australia, all this crap. And I got back from, once they took all the tubes out of me for drainage, because they went in and cut out part of my small intestine, lifted all my internal organs out to check for bleeding and stuff. But stapled me shut, sternum to pelvic bone, you know, big cut, cut me open. And then they stapled me together, and I had this like kind of Velcro girdle thing to hold my stomach together. So then I got back to New York. I rehabbed for like 2 weeks, kind of just laying in bed, sleeping all the time, and found some fly-by-night doctor who would take out the staples, and ask no questions. You know? So he did that, and then I just used that girdle thing to hold my stomach together, and then we went on a tour with Today's the Day. That was actually with Today's the Day, that first tour. And the joke was, well, we'll cancel these tours, because then we had, you know, Europe and Australia and Japan stuff. And the joke amongst the guys was, well, we'll cancel the tour if your stomach splits open and the guts start falling out, because there would be blood coming out after we play for the first few weeks, and it was really painful. It was extremely painful.
I mean, also thematically, like visually thematically appropriate as well, given the album covers and.
Yeah, I know. And it was sort of prescient, maybe the occupational hazard title, you know? Like,
You gotta stop writing stuff that will then later happen.
That happens. I know it sucks. I gotta know. You know what I should do is just write really positive stuff, and then everything will be great. You know.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever turned to any of your bands because of the unbridled positivity, but
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I know. Well, it does sort of we can live through anything. Have sort of a we can live through anything kind of ethos, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess sort of positive,
Well, and I know like you're not currently living in New York, but that sort of attitude I sort of equate with like a very New York kind of vibe.
Actually moving back, strangely enough.
No shit.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, once I got my first vaccine a little over a week ago, and so yeah, no shit, right on. And then on 4/20, I got my second shot. So then after that, I'll give that about a week to kick in, and then head back. So yeah, I scored a place in lovely Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Nice. Well, and it's really funny because I was reading through some rundown that you did, and you said at one point you guys had recorded stuff or like practice stuff in Vinny's basement in Ridgewood.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna be a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was our old practice space. Vinny his mother lived upstairs, and Vinny had the ground floor, and then we would practice in the basement. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Where in Ridgewood?
It's like Stanhope Street, like Stanhope and Cypress.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be right there again.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to be fairly close. I used to have to ride my bike from Manhattan all the time, over the Williamsburg Bridge and up Metropolitan and stuff. So
nice, just like old times.
Yeah.
I did have somebody ask a question that I'm selfishly also going to insert here because I was very excited about this. But I would love if you could just talk a little bit more about like the album art, like for Unsane kind of as a whole. Just because it's just, there's that thematic run through, but also now knowing that the Improvised Munitions album art is like the original. I'm just curious to hear you talk a little bit more about kind of the way that motif was something that you guys stuck on, as well as some of the way that stuff got actually made.
Yeah, no problem. We call it a blood run. And it really started out with like Pete and Jens shooting a bunch of crap in the early stuff. The first record, Pete had this picture that a friend of his was like a police photographer, and he had that guy on the tracks with his head cut off. So, we kind of figured if you're going to give us, 12 inches of art space, we're going to do our own thing. We don't want to have some guy from the label make some cover for us or anything. So we took it upon ourselves to start doing our own shit. So it was Pete and Jens, and we used a real one. We threw a couple of real ones in there.
Yeah.
Like Scattered is a real one. That's from like some Mexico death mag kind of weirdness. But then a lot of them, the most complicated, this guy James Rexroad, a friend of mine, photographer, really helped me out with a ton of stuff. And what we do is just go buy a shit ton of blood and go out to some spot outside or maybe even inside. Like Blood Run was actually done in my apartment, in my bathroom. But so we would go to a fairly public space. I would go look before, I'd go ride around on my bike and find a good spot where hopefully the cops wouldn't fuck with us. And then we just do a hit and run. Like I'll go in with a ton of blood and I just kind of throw blood everywhere and do my thing and do my whole setup. And then James and a few other guys and I would kind of discuss about what kind of framing, what we wanted it to look like basically. And then those guys come in, maybe like 2 or 3 minutes of pictures. And then we got to get the hell out of there because, we've just hosed everything down with real cow's blood. So
it's real blood.
Yeah, it's cow's blood or pig's blood sometimes. Yeah.
Nice.
No fake blood ever on an Unsane record cover.
That is really good to know, honestly.
It's not human blood, but whatever.
Well, then, out of curiosity, the cover for Wreck, then.
Yeah, That's my hand after we did me and my friend Jamie York, who's another photographer friend of mine who helps me out with stuff a bunch. We had been working on stuff in a studio. We were trying to get a drop when it hits and explodes. You know, it kind of makes this crown kind of shape with the blood and everything. But so we had been doing a bunch of that, and then we were doing different blood stuff. We were just trying different shit. But then Vinny had talked about doing, you know how De Niro at the end of Taxi Driver is going like, so Vinny was like, oh, can we just, you know, maybe have a hand with like drops of blood coming off it? So I had blood all over my hands, and I was just real quick like, hey, just take some shots of this with it dripping off. And yeah, and it worked. So, you know, you kind of shoot a ton of shit and then figure out what you want to use, you know.
Nice. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. One other question. So the scrape video, kind of changing tack a little bit.
Yeah.
I know you guys, that was sort of like a weird one because it was something that you shot with, I think the artist's name was Thomas Campbell.
Yeah. Thomas Campbell.
Is he the same artist who's now like kind of not an insignificant deal?
Oh, I don't know. Was he successful?
There is a Thomas Campbell who like is like a skater.
Yeah, like, artist. Yeah. He's been doing art forever. He's probably famous by now. I don't know. I haven't checked it out. But yeah, probably. I would assume it's the same guy. I would hope so.
Cool. But yeah, out of like, I know that ended up being sort of like an MTV hit, which is, you know, weird in some ways, but
totally. I mean, it all came from hanging out in the alleged gallery on Ludlow Street, and Thomas was doing a show there, doing an art show there. I don't know. He hung out a bunch, so maybe he wasn't doing a show.
Did you see alleged gallery?
Yeah. Hey.
Any connection to the song name?
To the what?
To the song name, alleged.
Oh yeah, totally. Yes, that was about the guy who ran the gallery, Aaron Rose, getting beat up by some guys I knew from, because I don't know, they didn't like him, and kind of just knocked him out. Anyway, but yes, so the song title is about something that happened on that street with these guys, and the guys were friends, and I lived in Aaron's place. I lived in the back of the gallery. But so Thomas Campbell was hanging out, and we were watching like skate videos, and at the end they would have all the bales and everybody getting hurt. So just took a big hit of weed and kind of turned to Thomas and said, hey man, can we make a video where everybody gets hurt? You know, where it's just skateboard guys, nobody makes it. But then he snuck one, the guy in at the end makes it. Yeah. But that's the only guy. Yeah, there had to be sort of a more positive thing to it. But that was the original idea, was just like, oh, hey, can we just make a video where everybody, maybe like 6 seconds of the band, you know what I mean? But the rest of it is just people getting hurt. So, yeah, so he made that. Did a really good job.
And someone in the comments just mentioned that it would have been a really good song for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but I think it was on one of the Pro Skater soundtracks, right?
It was on Tony Hawk. I think Tony Hawk 2.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because I know that's how multiple people that I know discovered Unsane because of the Tony Hawk.
Oh, wow. Oh, weird. Yeah, we got little breaks all over the place, I guess.
But yeah, do you think that makes perfect sense then? Because I guess people would have been seeing the scrape video specifically.
Yeah, it was like heavy rotation, 4 times a day, MTV, you know. Apparently Janet Jackson's management called MTV or wrote and said, like, you know, how can you show this video that's super cheap when we've spent $150,000 on our video and you won't even play it? You know, like getting very upset, you know, whatever.
Got to spend the money in the right place.
Yeah, $69, I think, for that one. Yeah.
And you said at some point, I also there's some, I guess somebody came up to you at one of your shows and was like, "Dude, I was one of the wipeouts in your video."
Yeah, a few guys. Yeah, and a guy in LA. There's one guy on BMX who bites it, and he came up to me. You know, yeah. There's been a few.
That's amazing. I guess just one of the other things that I thought was sort of interesting, just going through some of the interviews that you guys have done, more specifically you, talking about how like the sound like the Unsane sound is like very influential, but also sort of not really like something that you can successfully replicate.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really complicated or anything. It's just sort of a real bashing kind of way of playing, I feel like. Everybody plays differently. It's a hard thing to replicate. I mean, I use like a wah pedal and an overdrive, and that's it. Maybe this old lexicon delay, but I'm not like an effects wizard.
Sure,
So,
but I mean, you're playing in a sort of like a specific idiom that I don't think I mean, it obviously like draws on a whole bunch of stuff that other people are also kind of listening to, but the way that, like, if I hear a Chris Spencer part, I'm like, okay, that's Chris Spencer, like in sort of like a voice almost, that I think in some of the interviews that I've heard you sort of talk about, like when people are like, oh, well, you guys have influenced a lot of stuff. I can hear.
Relapse would say,
yeah.
Oh, we get tons of shit that sounds just like Unsane. And I'm like, oh, really? Like what? And then they play it for me, and I'm like, no, it doesn't sound like us at all. Like, I don't know, so whatever. I don't know why it's hard to replicate. I have no idea, honestly. So.
Well, it's funny because it kind of puts you in a class with these other bands who have this like fairly singular sound where like you hear it and you know who it is, but it's the clones never actually are clones.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, for example, Melvins. Who sounds like the Melvins, Yeah.
Like Melvin's Neurosis, no one does that the way that those guys do.
Yeah, totally. So I don't think it's particularly about equipment or, any of that. It's really just how you approach it, how you actually do it. So.
Yeah. Somebody is asking a question about I guess you guys went on tour with Child Bite. And someone wants to know a little bit about the touring experience with Child Bite. I know I saw you guys play a boat in the East River, which was a wild show.
Oh my God, that was so weird. That was so weird. Oh my God. You're like part of the captive audience on that boat. It
was great though. Like I'm surprised because Sean was like hanging from the rafters at some point.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it was great. Those guys are great. Child Bite are awesome. Really fun, great guys, great to hang out with, great to watch play every night. Yeah, it's good. It's good. There have been some bands I just go, oh no, not again, So.
Who are some of the bands that you've gotten to tour with where it was more like the excited to watch them every night kind of experience? I know you mentioned Today's the Day and.
Melvins. All really great to watch them every night. Every single fun as hell. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah. Hey, keep it down. Those guys are consistently on it. Like, I'd never seen them play a bad show.
Amazing. Well, and they've been sort of doing the same thing, not the same thing, but like they've been on the road for like years and years and years as well. So.
Yeah.
And then to the person who's asking about what happened to Vinny on that tour with Melvins, I believe that's when Vinny had like his major sepsis like injury.
Yeah, I was with him. He has this hostel place down in Mexico, in Tulum, and there's an upstairs roof bar, and we had played there on New Year's. Dave came down, and we just did a show on the roof. And then me and him are hanging out like a week later, and he just goes to go around the bar, and he's like, oh, shit, like pulled something in his lower back. And then from then on, man, he had to fucking lay down like immediately. And then months went by. He didn't go back to New York. I tried to get him to go back to New York, but he stayed in Mexico. And the thing just got worse and worse. And I think he was misdiagnosed, and he eventually got sepsis, the whole blood infection thing. And long story, it was a fucking long story. I mean, months, like some rehab center in Far Rockaway for months on antibiotics and stuff. But yeah, so he got hurt, and then we were supposed to tour with Melvins. He came back from Mexico. This was a few months after it happened. And we rehearsed with him, and he seemed like maybe he was getting better. He was maybe going to be able to do it. But then I would go to JFK. Me and Vinny had a flight to LA because the tour started out there. And I get JFK. I'm sitting out by the curb at JFK. I get this text. Can't do it. I'm fucked. So, what are you going to do? It was like, whatever. So Dave, who had tour managed Melvin's a bunch, hit up Dale and Cody, who were the two drummers for Melvin's at the time. And they agreed that Dale would do 6, Cody would do 6, and then they would play as 2 drummers for like 1 or 2 at the end and cover Vinny. But yeah, that was Vinny's whole sepsis thing. That's why that didn't happen, which is really too bad. I know he really wanted to do that. So
yeah. Well, I mean, if you're going to have a backup, it's nice to have 2 backups.
Yeah, I know. And the Melvin's drummers. So it doesn't get much better.
Another thing that I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, because Human Impact, like the formation of that band, you guys are also putting stuff out through Ipecac, right?
Yeah.
Somebody wanted to know a little bit more about your relationship with Ipecac as a label, because I know Unsane has also worked with Ipecac as well.
Yeah, Unsane was playing some festival, I don't know, forever ago. In Belgium, I think it was the Door Festival, and I was hanging out. Buzz was there. He was playing in Tomahawk, so Mike Patton was there. And we were all just kind of sitting around a table, and Mike was like, oh, hey, I'd like to put out an Unsane record. Do you have any interest? And I was like, yeah, sure. It sounds awesome. Sounds cool. And so we just started working with them. They put out Visqueen. I'm not sure. I don't know. They just did the one. But it went really well, and those guys were really nice. Greg Workman's very nice, the guy who runs the label for Mike. So everything had gone really well, and I sort of thought with Human Impact, I hit up Tom Hazelmeyer at Amphetamine Reptile, and I hit up Greg Workman from Ipecac. Those were the only 2 labels I really tried to get anything with. But then I had a really old email for Tom Hazelmeyer that was no longer in use. So it ended up just going to Greg Workman. And I just sent him like 3 songs and said, hey, do you have any interest? And he was like, totally, so it's been great. It's really going well.
I was going to say, I'm glad he did, given that the other email didn't work. So
I know. Yeah, no, I got turned down. We were totally screwed, Who do we? And there's sort of a more like weird art thing to Ipecac, it's kind of a you can do whatever you want kind of label, which I like. So
yeah. Somebody wants to know if you remember a Cutthroats 9 show in Philly where the drummer got naked at the end.
There were a few. That was a weird thing that Will liked to do. I'm not exactly sure why he liked to do it, but he did. And then like when there was one time in Philly, maybe it was Philly. No, I think it was Baltimore. But he did it. He like ripped off his clothes. And he smashes his drum kit. So he's got no cover. After he smashes his kit, he's naked, standing there. And I remember and the lights all came on, like right as he's kicked over everything's like flown all over the place. And then Will's standing there naked. And these giant white floodlights all turn on because the show's over.
Which venue?
What?
Which venue was this?
Yeah, I think it was Kyber Pass.
Okay.
Baltimore. I can't remember. It would have been Autobar normally, but I don't think it was Autobar. But I think that was Kyber. It might have been Kyber. But then I just remember Will fucking running to hide behind the SVT as quickly as possible. So,
I'm trying to remember. I think I only went to a couple shows at Kyber, but that doesn't provide you a whole lot of cover.
No, no. He was pretty, that's what you get. What are you doing?
Made his bed. Now he has to lie in it.
Yeah, totally. Stand naked in it,
Well, also, so with Cutthroats 9, because I know like the lineup in that is also just like a bunch of fucking crazy awesome musicians as well. How did come again?
In Cutthroats? Yeah, that was really me and Will. Will's just a good friend of mine. He's really like he plays in a band called Death Angel. He's like he's super metal,
Yeah.
He's metal guy. He's awesome. Like he's an incredible metal drummer, which to me, you know, like I was like, okay, well, can we do it with no double kick?
And he was like, no.
No, he's into it. He's like, oh yeah, because it's more, you know, he's got his whole metal drummer thing down to a T. So he was more, you know, he was trying something a little different. Will's just, he was like a child, you know, prodigy kind of thing. He's just ridiculously good. So, and then we had, I think, like 13 different bass players. So, so it was, and then we also had another guitar player at one point at the beginning. We had 2 guitars. This guy, Mark Laramie, but, you know, I don't know. It's,
I mean, you could always pull a Melvins and release another Cutthroats 9 where you invite back all of your different bassists for a track.
Oh, back. I want to get Jeff Matz back in there. I mean, he didn't play on a record, but he played a show with us, and he's really good.
Nice.
I know. See if I can get him to play. That would be awesome.
So going back a little bit for a second to Unsane, I'm just sort of curious. I know with like the self-titled record, you sort of talked in an interview about the difference between Vinny and then Chris, your prior drummer. And it was sort of interesting to me to hear kind of how you thought that their different playing styles affected the songs a little bit. So I
Yeah.
to kind of talk about that.
I've read things where people are like, oh, and they talk shit about Charlie. No.
Charlie, yeah.
Charlie Andres. No way, man. Like my best friend. Me and Charlie hung out all the time. I lived in the apartment he died in.
Yeah.
It was CMJ, and I was in Seattle seeing my girlfriend, and Charlie passed away while I was gone. You know, whatever. So Charlie was all over the place. Awesome, great drummer, just kind of a Mitch Mitchell kind of thing. You know, lots of rolls all the way down, rolls all over the place. Really cool, crazy kind of style. And then Vinny is really just locked in, you know, very straightforward, kind of locked in beats. So Charlie added to the chaos, you know, Charlie added to this whole wall of sound chaos thing we had going on. And it was great, you know, it was cool. Charlie, a lot of times we had this attitude about it where we were cool with things speeding up or slowing down at different times, which he did a lot. And you know, it's hard to say whether he meant to or not, you know what I mean? But we just got used to, as friends, playing together a lot, you know, all the time. So you would know in which part of the song it would be a little slower and which parts would speed up, which would slow down. And sometimes it was kind of drastic, but that was actually kind of a cool thing because it added this whole, you know, tempo chaos at times that I really liked. I thought it was awesome. It was really cool. So then after Charlie passed away, Vinny got in, and it's just fucking punch press, you know, straight beats, which is cool and made us heavier. You know what I mean? Like we had gone from wall of sound noise into a more heavy kind of thing. And then when Dave came in on bass, that also added more heaviness because he was using a precision bass and Pete had been using a Rickenbacker. So the Rick is a little more mid-rangey, you know, and then the Dave's bass tone was just ridiculously low end and great, you know. So they both had great tones, both had great sounds. But Pete did a lot of feedback stuff and stuff, which is really cool. But Dave was more low end heaviness, you know. So the band kind of got heavier as time went on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know you also, Dave joined on tour, like midway through a tour, basically.
Story, yes. So Pete quit the band right before we had a tour with Biohazard. Oh boy. But so then our manager guy was like, okay, tours, I think it started in Seattle or something like that. But there's a guy in Seattle that, you know, I found that can do it. And he can jump in for this tour and see if, you know, just work with him for the tour and we'll see if it works out. So Dave was our sound guy. So we had this guy play bass in the band for like 3 shows. And every show he fucked up, like repeatedly. And I was like, look, you know, I'm totally willing to run through songs with you, you know, as many times as you need to. We just got to play them right when we, you know, if you're opening for Biohazard, you got to kind of get things right. So he got like offended, like, oh, why do why do you want to play with me all the time? I'm like, no, I just want to run through the songs more. So whatever. So after the third show, he fucked up in Las Vegas one more again, and then I woke up in the morning after being out drinking and gambling all night and making a bunch of money, and I wake up to this guy grabbing me in bed going, what the fuck did you do, and all this shit. And turns out the guy had like lost the cap. Vinny and the guy were sharing a room next door, so the guy lost the cap to his toothpaste. That's like some organic toothpaste or some shit. But so he lost the cap, and he turned to Vinny. He goes, what the fuck, man? Who took my cap to my toothpaste? And Vinny was like, no, I lost mine too. I just wrapped some cellophane around it with a rubber band, and we're good. And the guy said, like, no, man, this is some kind of conspiracy. So Vinny, with the guy fucking up and his weirdness, Vinny was like, excuse me. Vinny was like, look, that's it. We're going to put you on a bus back to Seattle. We'll figure out how to keep going with the tour. Because me and Dave had been playing guitar, even though as our sound man, me and him had been kind of playing every night. After the show, we'd get to the hotel, bust out some guitars and play some AC/DC or something, But so I kind of knew, and I told Vinny, I think Dave can do it. But then Dave learned the entire set in the van between Las Vegas and LA, 4 hours, and played the entire set perfectly at the Whiskey that night. Yeah, and he was just been in the band ever since. So
maniacal.
Yeah, crazy. I know. It's kind of typical for us. More injuries and quitting and, all kinds of chaos,
Crazy random happenstance, just,
Yeah.
Another thing that I came across in an interview that I don't know if other people know about this, but when you guys opened for Slayer, I guess.
Yeah.
You said that Tom Araya said that you were like one of the only bands that no one threw anything at.
Yeah, that's true. And he said, yeah, which really is crazy because they even pelted Lemmy with plastic cups and shit. That was the most hostile audience ever. What we did is we were like, okay, if you left that audience any moment of silence, they would just scream, Slayer, and flip you off. So what we did is we just go out there, start with just feedback and not leave any empty space during the entire set. Just in between songs, total feedback and noise. And then, and I mean, I was ready. Some of the smaller places, I was ready to bonk a guy in the head with the Telecaster. You know what I mean? Like if, you had to be like on guard during that tour. That was like, we were ready for any kind of crap that was, could happen. It's like Dave Sardi at Irving Plaza when Bark Market opened for them. They snuck in between us and Slayer at the Irving Plaza. And Dave Sardi starts saying to the crowd, like, you got some really pretty lips. You got some really pretty dick-sucking lips. And he was on mushrooms, and he jumped off the stage into Slayer's audience, which I thought was a very bold move, So,
okay.
Yeah.
And that's not always an audience that takes kindly to
insults.
Yeah, and insults of a particular either gendered or like sexual nature.
Yeah.
It's a very masculine audience in a,
all a bunch of guys, just fucking. Yeah. There might be one woman in the back by the merch booth,
It's gotten better, but you still got the old guard there that were making things absolute hell initially.
Doesn't play anymore, do they? I thought they were done.
They were mostly done. I the only time I've seen them was like a farewell tour, I think.
Yeah, okay. Because
it was a little snugglier.
I thought that was genuinely the farewell tour. I don't know. Yeah. They make so much. They're motivated to get back out there,
Yeah. But yeah, so I do want to be mindful of time because I think we're coming up on 9. But I also wanted to give you just an opportunity, over the course of this, if there's anything that you want to make sure that we talk about, cover for folks who are tuning in, beyond the things that are coming up, you know, Bandcamp Friday, stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I was just gonna, Lamb Unlimited at Bandcamp now has all the Unsane shit. And it's all us, you know what I mean? I'm the guy who has to figure out who gets what from who played on what and where, and it's really a pain in the ass, but I'll do it. But yeah, so, we've got all our shit back, basically, a majority of it. And yeah, and I mean, it's basically, if you want Unsane shit, go to Lamb Unlimited at Bandcamp. And yeah, and then the Improvised Munitions. That's about it, and then Impact stuff that just came out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And
cool.
Doing more shit. So
awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Technical difficulties and all. I know that's
about that.
No, it's always a risk. Yeah, I'm honestly amazed that it hasn't happened more. So
cool. All right.
Cool. Thank you so much for taking the time. And folks who've tuned in, make sure, Bandcamp Friday, it's coming up this Friday. So Lamb Unlimited Bandcamp page, the Human Impact Bandcamp page.
It's first Friday.
I know. I can't believe it's already April. So.
Good. Huh. All right. Well, thanks for doing this.
Likewise. Thanks so much. And folks, we will be saving this in the IGTV tab on the page. So.
Cool.
Thanks. Bye.
See ya.